You're listening to Crush Performance, your weekly source for sport performance and athletic development information. Get the Crush blogs, podcasts, and performance links at crushperformance.com. Now, here he is, the Crusher.
All right, welcome to Crush Performance, everybody. We're here with our good friend Dave Turgeon, who is the head coach of the IMG national team in baseball. Turge, so great to have you on, and this is our first Crush video recording, so this is kind of a historic day, man. I'm so glad we can line it up.
I'm loving it, man. It's great to see you, Crush.
Yeah, you as well. Hey, so listen, first and foremost, congratulations on an epic season there. You guys 24-0, correct?
It was 25-0.
25-0, that final finish, right? I think I talked to you.
Yep.
You guys are 24-0 with one to go. 25-0 at the end of the season. Look, I don't care what level of sport you're playing. To go undefeated, what an amazing feat, Turge. You must have an incredible group of young men there learning and playing the game. I can't wait to hear more about this process you guys went through.
So, we've all, and probably most of the folks listening, have been a part of teams, and some more successful than others. And to have a season like this, you got to have a lot of stuff going your way. But the bottom line on any successful season is, I just found that I think it boils down to how close the room gets. And so the whole team thing and the whole synergy thing, which I put a premium on that because I know it's the number one performance enhancer there is besides confidence. I think that team synergy has a way of allowing guys' skills, whatever they may be, to play up. And I think once you get it rolling and there's this buy-in, it feeds itself, and it's really hard to stop, And so we had a combination of, an unbelievable staff, and the care level through the roof. Our support staff was fantastic, and guys that bought in, and they bought into showing up for work every day and working with a purpose, and earning the right to have a good year, earning the right to win games, earning the right to perform. All of that stuff it's all connected, and it takes, our messaging was simple. It's going to take all of us. And it does. It literally does. And we had different heroes along the way. Sometimes the hero was our trainer, but just really, it literally takes a village. So, and again, we're talking about, it's a high school season. It's 25 games. It is a sprint, and because of the schedule we play and our brand, we play the toughest schedule in the country. So it's 25 game sevens to whoever you're playing. And so that really, I think that is a great inspiration to show up for work every day. Just know there's a bullseye in your chest, and you can get beaten if you don't show up any day of the week. And that's at every level. You see it. You see it in the regionals. You see it in the super regionals in college. You see it on television. If you don't show up, it's really hard. And so the challenge is to get, their minds and hearts and heads to show up every day. That's a great challenge. So It takes a lot of help and support to do that.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is really important, Turge. And I know you, and I've worked with you in the past, and it's been fun to sort of follow you guys as this came together. You came from the Pittsburgh Pirates Organization Pro Ball into this incredible environment. How has that changed for you, Turge? I mean, I know that's a big thing. Everybody's enamored with professional baseball. I really love working with the high school guys, academy players. It's a real special level of the game, I've always felt.
Yeah, I think you got to be better at this level in a couple ways. I think the first thing is, and you've heard me talk about soundtracks before, right? So whatever energy you're bringing into a room, into a conversation, self-awareness, which if you have the wrong energy, then the message not received. If you have the right energy, in other words, if you're there with them and they feel good and comfortable, and we'll get into being coachable later, but it's a big deal. The second piece of this thing that I think that this level has made me better at is having a deeper knowledge of the game. To be able to kind of go backwards even on a deeper, more simple level isn't always that easy, right? And so you have to have, besides range, you got to have some depth and understanding of taking things backwards and making it edible for a guy. And it's I think the beauty of good coaching is the simplicity of it, and then the timing of it, of what they need at that time. And it's not being, vomited on with information. It's not, a coach trying to gain credibility with a guy, what he's thinking. You're there to help him there to perform, number one. And obviously, I mean, we're holistically developing our guys to be better people and be, more equipped for their next place, whatever that is, because most of these guys aren't going to be in the major leagues, and they're going to go on, maybe, play college baseball and hopefully have success in a career. But there's a ton of soft skill development along the way of this too. And, and that, honestly, I mean, that's going to help performance, not just on the field, but it'll help wherever they're at. Right. And so those two big pieces for me are unbelievable. I've had to make a ton of adjustments, being at this level, but it's made me a better coach.
Interesting, Turge. There's a word that gets thrown around quite often, and I'm not sure people really understand it. And I don't know if there's a succinct definition for it, but this whole thing called culture. It sounds to me you're creating an incredible culture there, a culture of expectation, a culture of accountability. And to be clear, these are high school players coming from all over the place to play 25 incredibly pressure cooking important games. Wow, man, that's all I can say.
So, I mean, culture is, obviously there's a lot of under that umbrella, right? And you've been a part of culture building. And so once I think in it, and there's a lot of classroom stuff, where, you to help them understand, well, what does a good teammate look like? What does right look like? What does wrong look like? Okay. So there's an awareness, and then hold them to it. And there's your standards. And then, what does championship behavior look like? Right. And that could come from, taking care of, the weight room, nutrition, academics, personal relationship. Championship behaviors go beyond X's and O's, right? And it's always about the process. But when you talk about, oh, we want to go undefeated, or that's a goal, that's great. How are you going to do that? Well, it becomes the process, right? And so to help guys fall in love with that process, and going back to, showing them how to work, showing them how to respect the game, showing them how to respect each other, all of that stuff is part of the process, and it's daily. And it's catching them doing good all the time and rewarding that and holding them accountable when it's not looking good, right? Until you get those championship behaviors, and it always plays out in performance.
George, I love this, and you mentioned something there that I think, caught my ear anyway, because this is something I think is really, really important. This whole concept of goals and objectives, right? And you said something here. I have to ask you now. You said, going undefeated as a goal. Was undefeated a goal at the start, or was your goal more process orientated? Because a goal of going undefeated, I mean, that is a lofty goal, right? So was that the goal at the start, or was that just how that was, or was that the result of the process you guys got into?
And so when we go through the preseason, and we bring about, what are our team goals and all of this stuff. And, the undefeated season gets bandied about. It's never happened, right? And so I said, well, listen, anything's possible. It's certainly possible, and it's really hard. I said, if that's what you want, well, I have a plan. And so you go into it, and when you start breaking the plan down to, I really don't care about Wednesday's game. We have a game on Monday, and we have to prepare for that game to earn the right to win the first inning on Monday. And I break it down into edible pieces for them, right? And we have, we want to score first, we want to take care of the baseball, we want to situationally be maniacs, we want to pound the strike zone, control the counts, we want to run, two base advances, dirt ball maniac. So we have the recipes there, and then you train them, and so, but it's really it's about winning the day. It's about winning every day and winning our training that day. And is it championship level, or what do you guys have now that we're reviewing our day? And so prepare, execute, review is the process. And so part of getting them to understand and love the process, I think, and then at the same time we're developing that team synergy, right? And so you get these guys to understand how they have that purposeful work really will give them more skills that will play up in the fire, because good training holds up in the fire. And you're going to win more than you lose, right? If you show up and you do these things repetitively. And so we have, Kaizen's a huge concept. I've always loved
Yes.
Kaizen, right?
Yep.
And so, players, athletes, there's this perfection, pursuing the perfection thing. I mean, if you're going to do in baseball, you're chasing unicorns, right? I mean, it's just, you're disappointed every day. And so with the process of focusing on improvement, okay, we can control that. It's measurable, and it ends up, if we do our process, guys have a tendency to perform. And it's just the way it is. And it's not just working, it's working with purpose. And so it's constant messaging and constantly catching them doing it, and rewarding it. So when we have a Kaizen player of the week, right? And we hand out a t-shirt to that player who's exhibited championship behaviors, has done purposeful work, has been a great teammate, right? And it's never about the performance piece. And so what ends up happening is, the guys that do those things have a tendency to really perform. And so they end up falling in love with the process. They realize that this is why I'm having success right now, right? And then, the other guys are like, oh, I want that, and it feeds itself. It's a cool thing to watch. Simple thing of earning a t-shirt that says respect the rep on it, right? They earned that. Right. They earn that, and they earn the right to perform, and they earn the right to have confidence. They earn the right to perform and win games. So it's not just this thing where, I hope we go 25-0, and it's just not how it works, and you've got to be reasonably healthy. You've got to have buy-in. You got to have guys showing up and working when they don't want, accountability. All of you got some lucky hops, and a couple of big hits from guys you couldn't even imagine. You've got to have a lot of things going your way. And to your point about the level, it's hard to win that. It's hard to win that many games in a row anywhere,
Anyway.
And when you think about this age group and where their minds can go, to get that to show up every day, that's fun challenge. So, because, just the emotions and then in game, the emotions, can I get a guy to show up for every pitch? He just struck out looking with the bases loaded. Is he going to take that out to the, defense is going to be one bad golf shot becoming four bad holes, or can he get to the next pitch? So to teach guys how to be present is another great challenge, All right, move on. Next pitch, next play, next pitch, next play. I can't think about what just happened, right? So the teaching opportunities and challenges all over the place, which to me makes it even more fun. Um, so you're not talking about husbands and fathers. You're talking about kids, 16, 17 years old, and with high expectations, and they're on the social media lists of top this and top that. You're fighting a lot of noise with that too, right? But I tell them, I said that really good players can show up for the next pitch and be present. But what stops guys from doing that generally is the emotions, man,
Right.
and the ancient history of things, just ripping their heads apart, and just making them crazy.
Yeah,
And I think the emotions, are something that makes you not see the game as well. And you make maybe poor decisions on a field if you're not present, or you're emotional about what just happened prior. I mean, that's a challenge that continues all through the minor leagues and into the major leagues.
for sure. What an important skill. We're talking with Dave Turgeon, the head coach of the IMG national team, 25-0 this season. An incredible feat at any level of a sport, but especially here. This is a competitive league you guys are in, Turge. Those emotions, right? We see them everywhere. And, one of the things we're trying to do is get out in front of that and arm players with tools, coping tools, where they can manage and understand when things aren't going right, or how when they're feeling maybe a little off, to be aware of that, but also to know that they're really in control. Turge, you said something early on, first of all, this is the thing I love about this is this true team effort. Everybody showing up, everybody contributing.
Yeah.
All of us is what you said.
Yeah.
All of us. All of
Hmm.
every individual athlete. And I love that. The emotions, the pull, working together towards a goal. That room you talked about can be one of the most powerful drivers in just humanity, right?
Yes.
But the process you talked about, I love this. Prepare, execute, review. We've got kind
Yeah.
of a three phase model that we've been using for years and years. It's have an approach, okay? Get your result, execute, get your result, and then respond accordingly. Analyze and respond accordingly. So very similar thinking. I absolutely love
Yeah.
this. That little process, and I love that there's a power of three. There's a psychological power of three as well. So prepare, excite, response. What a way to help control those emotions. And those guys, when they're aware, just being aware of when maybe the emotions are taking over, get back to the plan, man. Back to the plan. How powerful is that?
It is, and I tell you, so when you talk about the process, where as a coach, I think the process is even more important in terms of how we're going to prepare, right? And so being creative in our work days and tailoring that to individual needs, and then what does the team need, what do the individuals need. So there's a lot of work that goes into the preparation of that, and then the execution of that. What's it look like on the field? Well, the training aspect, and I love training, and it has to be. I believe wholeheartedly when you're talking about emotions. Well, how can they handle them in the games? Well, if your training doesn't evoke emotions and frustrations, then you're never having those real teaching opportunities to get them to handle those things in those moments. Those are emotional reps of being able to get to the next play and the
Yeah,
next
I like
pitch.
that.
So training is a big part of that. In fact, it's almost like, well, if the first time they experience something is in the game, that's too late. And so how are they going to handle that? It's really hard, and you're doing it in front of a crowd, and you're doing it in the fire. And so that's why I always say that, your training should really prepare these guys, emotionally, and having to contend with their emotions during the training. And so, for an example, I mean, this sounds silly. You get a guy that gets visibly frustrated and gets lost in himself. And, you know, younger players have some me monster in them. That's fine, right? And so, but when you go just so deep in, I know it's not out and external on, okay, my next round, I'm going to work on staying in the middle of the field. I was just way too pull oriented. I got to stay in the middle of the field. Instead, they're just being frustrated about what's going down, melting down in a batting practice, which we always make it challenging,
Right.
right? And so the more they have to contend with their emotions, the better off they're going to be in the fire when they have to deal with them in a real way, and it's going to affect the outcome of the game and their performance. And so I really believe, and then look, a lot of conversations with having guys get to the next pitch and how they can do it. Showing them video of themselves and their body language. Where do you think your head is right here? Do you think it's on the next play? Um, you know, Awareness, and so that also helps them contend with their emotions. And getting them to refocus their thoughts, and on the right stuff. So training is a big piece of that, and the classroom stuff with awareness of it is a huge piece of that.
Yeah.
So when they go take the test, they've been there. It's a bad feeling going in for the algebra test and not having looked at the algebra for a couple of weeks.
Been there.
Been there too, man.
Yeah.
More
Yeah,
than once.
I know that ugly, empty, hopeless feeling. It's
Woo!
like it's like rolling the dice on the table.
Tough
Turd,
feeling.
yeah, so much good stuff here. Hey, I love the concept of emotional reps. Listen to me. Sport is this big macho area of human, performance. We don't talk about emotions in that side too openly. I absolutely love the concept of emotional reps. We just don't do it. Let me ask you this, and I'm not going to hold you to this, and you don't even have to give me a number, just a general sense. If you were to look at a program that's just purely technically and tactically orientated, execute, practice, mechanics, boom, 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 and then you have a program that's technically, tactically oriented with a beautiful um, um, joining of the emotional side and the awareness side. How much difference does that make? It's immeasurable. Like, how much
Yeah,
difference does that make?
it's really hard to quantify, but you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Um, Perfect example is how Tim Corbin runs his program at Vandy. Ton of classroom time, ton of self-awareness, culture building, a ton of time getting their head right before they hit the practice field. So they're preparing to prepare before a practice. And so, Corbs is obviously his body of work speaks for itself, right? And it's a tremendous culture. And his guys are so mentally tough. And, you want to define mental toughness, it's guys that, obviously can perform in pressure in the fire, but they can get punched in the mouth and they keep coming at you and getting to the next pitch. His program, I just love watching his team play,
Yeah.
and Eric Backage, who is a disciple and worked with Corbs at Clemson and then at Vanderbilt, and he took that model, and I'm sure he does it in his own style. They were talking about Clemson, who's they had a tough loss to end the year, but had an amazing season. He flipped the program culture, and the announcer was talking about how before the first game they were all headed up to the classroom. Well, the classroom session was about getting their heads in the spot to go out and kick someone's butt, right? And it wasn't like, yeah, we gotta go kick their butt. It was more about, probably, and I've been present for some of these, and with Corbs is getting themselves in a place to understand how to do that. Where do they have to be mentally, right? And so it's emotional control and knowing what you're doing. Being a baseball player with an emotional control is incredible when you see it. And and then you see other teams that are less disciplined, super talented, less disciplined, emotionally out of control, and they end up, those emotional spikes are also draining. But just redirecting the energy where it needs to be. Last I checked, I mean, I can't sit there as a player. Obviously a little different era, but for me, I couldn't have my pom poms on and watch and gather intel to, so I could know how to beat the other team when I had the opportunity to do that. if I was emotionally out of control and this misdirected energy thing, right? And so
Right.
getting back to culture, you want to talk about dugout culture. What are you doing in your dugout? I mean, you've seen there's some crazy dugouts going on in baseball right now. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And
Yeah.
so part of that is, obviously knowing how to act, and there's a respect factor of respecting the game, and respecting your opponent is very big, and to show them what it looks like. But the other piece of the dugout culture is teaching them how to watch the game, because the game is telling you what you need to know if you're watching. And if you don't know what you're looking at, and it's giving them some of, pitchers, I give them a little focus. Hitters, I give them a little focus on the pitcher. Base runners, we talk about a focus. This guy is giving a tell on the mound, teaching them how to watch. And it's amazing when you show guys how to watch, all of a sudden they're locked in on the things they're supposed to be locked in on. And the energy is intense in the dugout. It's just not this crazy outward, like, firing a machine gun like this. Instead, they're pointing their gun and specifically shooting a target. It's a very specific intensity.
Love that.
So dugout culture is a big piece of the learning process as well.
No, and it's something that's overlooked, especially at that level, man. You are setting these guys up for success, and it goes beyond sport, right? I mean, that is just respect of the game, respect of the opponent, but
Yeah.
also, man, fine tuning and controlling your efforts and your energy. Wow, man, that is powerful stuff, Dave. Couple things here I got to get to, and again, I'm looking over here. I've got like notes, man. I'm
I
taking
got
notes.
some notes.
So not to get distracting over here, but I've got some things I want to get to here. Hey, listen. So one of the words you mentioned earlier, and you hear about this when you look at some of the most successful cultures in sport. In basketball, you might look at Popovich and that organization. One of the things they talked about openly was caring for their players. You don't
Yeah.
hear that often, right? You hear about process and discipline and aggressiveness and do, but you don't hear this idea of caring that often. And you mentioned a couple of things there. You mentioned it earlier in the conversation, but you mentioned it again. And I think there's a context here that we need to discuss, but because you need to be caring, but you have to care about the right stuff, right? At the right
Right.
time. And that's kind of that focusing of emotions and stuff. And that's an incredibly important conversation, especially for a young player.
I think so. When you talk about, so the care thing is all that's interwoven throughout this whole thing, right? Um, you mentioned something about players being coachable, and I hear coaches say that, and I've said it 100 times, 1,000 times before I even grasped. I believe everyone's coachable. You just have to figure out how, right?
It's,
And
love it.
so you go into a room and say, hey, you if you can't receive coaching, then you can't improve because you're never getting or accepting feedback. Well, the reality of it is that you're talking about, if you have a room of 25 guys, you have 25 different personalities. Some of them are wired like you are, and they speak your language. It's easy. I love coaching this guy. He's coachable. This other guy doesn't receive coaching. Well, you get the wrong soundtrack.
Uh,
And so when you connect with the dude on a personal level, it might be over hockey, it might be over a personal family tragedy. You know your guy personally, and once you're in there, this guy, I know this kid, he really likes to do it before practice, one on one, alone, with no one else around. He gets very self conscious with people. And I know, and so this other guy, I do it during BP, in a casual conversation because he doesn't feel like he's being called into the principal's office. With this guy, I can go, hey man, let's go, let's clean that up. Your approach, let's go, refocus, reset it. You good? Yeah. Whatever. The way we grow up, right? You still have those guys.
yeah.
We have them all, but the reality is they're kids. And as you go up, and pro ball was no different, you have to connect on their personal level, not yours, and where they are. Where are they? Where are they at in their process? And that's the key, and not just in their baseball process, their life process. This kid has no life dirt in his cleats. He doesn't even understand what you're talking about being emotionally present.
Right.
And so how do we get him there? Well, we got to start from ground zero. But first, we got to connect. And so in this day and age in 23 with all the tech, I use it all the time. Send him a personal video of something about what we talked about with him yesterday, but it's being done by a major leaguer. Makes him feel unbelievable, but also the teaching aspect of it, message received. And the guy shows up next day, he's ready to go. He's going to work on his thing. But it's not all conversations either. It's showing them stuff. And so how they receive it, man, this guy's like researching videos for me. That's pretty good. He must really care. I don't know. And maybe, and so it's 24/7. It's you're constantly communicating with them, How'd that chemistry test go today? Did you nail it? Well, God, this guy's checking on my academics too. I mean, man, yeah. Hey, I talked to Coach Townsley. He said you did a really good job in the weight room yesterday, particularly on this Your force plate numbers are coming through the roof because of the work you're putting in. He's checking on my weight room stuff. It's a constant thing. And I believe that every player is coachable in their way. You have to figure out what is that way. That's the work.
Yeah, right. And that's the work, Turge, as a coach, right? As a coach, mentor, and all of that important stuff. I love this, the idea of using the tech. Now I see you coaching me, mister, because I've gotten some of those videos, and they're powerful. They really do. Like, I take the time to watch every one you send me, and they get me thinking, man. So I understand what you're saying there, and I love that stuff. So I want you to know I really do appreciate that.
Well, part of that, too, is I know you have a passion to learn, or it might be a conversation we had on a topic. And so it's pertinent to this stuff. And it's just, I'm wired that way, too. It's like, deep in the knowledge. And then, then there's this synergy between us and sharing information and growing. It's the same with the players. I do it with my coaches. I do it with all my close inner circle, and it's an awesome thing, learning.
Yeah, it is awesome. It is. It truly is. And the sharing of information, the different perspectives, and you hear it from somebody else who might see something a little differently. That just makes me better when I can appreciate that perspective, even the perspective of a player or an athlete I'm working with. Makes me a little better if I really embrace that, I feel.
I've had conversations with you about some certain topics where you've given me feedback and experience on a topic and then sent me something, and so my original thoughts are, am I crazy? And then your thoughts either affirm or change or deepen, what I was thinking. And, we're all just trying to get closer to the truth. I mean, we're not there. I don't think we get there. I don't think it's destination. I think it's a journey, and I don't think it's a destination.
That is awesome.
Keep trying to get closer to it, right?
Yeah. Closer to the truth. So that being said, the perfect segue for one last thing I really want to address with you as a coach, and not necessarily as a baseball coach, but early on, you talked about, you guys have batting practice, but you make batting practice challenging. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about a couple things. And there was a great article written about you and the team that I really, really appreciated. And one of the things you mentioned in there is, I think the reporter asked you, so, hey, Dave, are you calling the pitches from? He said, no, I never call it. I never call a pitch. How can the players learn how to play the game if I'm calling the pitches? Dave, I love that, man. I've always loved that. And one of the biggest crimes I think I see in baseball right now is the catcher looking over on every pitch and the coach giving them the call. I hate it. I wish it would be outlawed. There's a rule change that needs to happen. That should be it, because once these guys leave that little nest, they have no idea what's going on. So I really, really appreciate that. And I love the comment you made. And I don't know if a lot of people picked up on it, but you make batting practice challenging. because boy, oh boy, it's easy to go through the motions. But if you're going to exact change, if you're going to create change and improvement, you better be in that kind of an environment.
So that was a lot, but yeah, we try to create baseball players, which in my opinion is an athlete that is a problem solver in a really fast environment. And you do that through preparation and teaching, but you're teaching them, and then they learn to trust their eyes. And when you're not micromanaging either A, the pitch calling, or B, the positioning on every single pitch, then they're forced to think, and whether it's right or wrong, they're thinking, right? And so go back to the pitch calling. We do the positioning, right? So I have certain positioning versus a right versus a left, certain positionings, and we train off of our positioning. But I make it clear to them that these are just starting points, fellas, because no one knows better than you what's going on between hitter and batter. I have a terrible angle. You're reading swings. You know what's happening on the mound. You know where his pitches are going in, out, up, down, he's locating or not.
Right.
And so you guys have to understand and trust what you're seeing. And it's awesome to watch. My shortstop, Stone Russell, baseball player, right? I mean, he's unbelievable. He was a senior and took control of my infield positioning, and switching up coverages on reading swings, stuff that I think is really important in creating baseball players. Because if you remove that from them and they're just looking in, where do you want me? They're not watching anymore, and now they're just, okay, I hope he hits it here, ready for the next play, right? But they're not watching the game, and that's the fun of it. I mean, playing the game, that's the game, right? And so pitch calling, right? And so I had a starting guy and I had a backup guy. They're both very good. I was very fortunate. I had two really good catchers, and I said, fellas, here, we give them a basic plan. And hey, we don't want to let this guy beat us. These guys run, whatever. If you want, we'll control the running game. Just go ahead, run the game. And so when it gets sideways with the pitch calling, those are teaching moments, right?
Yes.
And so they also have the option of, when the game gets real fast and you don't know what the heck to throw down, just give us a peek. We got you covered right here. Try that one. Slow it down for them. And he comes back in the dugout, and this is why we call that pitch, right? Who's hitting, scoreboard, inning, stuff. It's teaching the game, but that's the fun, man. I mean, they're playing the game now instead of just following directions, and I just feel like it's their game. It's not mine.
Yeah,
I want to let them play the game that I love.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that, Turge. Just watching the players, and I've been around teams where the coach calls literally every pitch. And I don't really think the players come off that field understanding the consequences, both in terms of success and failures for what they just did, because they didn't make the decision. That decision-making process on setting a hitter up as a pitcher, setting a hitter up, and then throwing in that off speed just at the right time because you feel that's the pitch, and maybe giving up a home run going, that was not a good call. That's part of the learning
maybe it was
process.
Poorly located.
Right. Right. And
So,
that's a learning thing.
So there's an overemphasis on, we used to call it pitch calling, or changing speeds. Now they call it sequencing.
Yeah. Right.
And so pitching is, okay, Crush, you're on the mound. We got to figure out how to get this lineup out with your weapons, not this other guy's weapons. So we got a little different thing here. I mean, we got little different weapons and all that stuff. And this is how we're going to navigate through the lineup. And with your stuff, this is how you do it. And it's a constant learning process. And oh yeah, that might be different next time because you don't have your slider, you got your changeup, your fastball's not as firm. So you're going to have to change your plan in mid game because I just don't have my slider today. I'm going to pitch off my changeup. but the adjustability of with your weapons. So it's a constant thing. It's not just in the moment either, you know what I mean? And so learning to have them understand that you go out with kind of different weapons every time too. You feel differently, your physicality, for some reason you don't have the good fastball today. Well, how are you going to get them out now? And navigate through that. And then having catchers understand that. It's the game. It's a beautiful game, and it's, you know, the more you play it, the more it becomes chess, and that's the fun of it. And I just don't believe in removing that from the players and having them stop the learning. I mean, if you have the answers to the tests, and your creativity goes away, and your vision of what you're seeing, you don't even trust it. You don't even know what you're seeing. I think that our guys played very free. It wasn't mistake free. There were tons of teaching opportunities, and you walk alongside and you coach them up.
That's
the thing. It's their game. It's a great game. I just let them play it.
Yeah. I've been in a lucky spot in my career, Turge, to meet guys like you and work with you, and, you know, help develop, you know, programs all around the world. And I've also been lucky to work in other sports. And one of the cool things that I find is the sport analogies. You hear basketball guys talking about baseball analogies or football analogies, and vice versa, vice versa. This is a conversation for sport, not just baseball. Yeah. And that's why, Turge, I just appreciate you so much, man. Honest to goodness.
It's two-way street, Crush. There's such transfer to the things we're talking about, the concepts we're talking about. It transfers to sport. It also transfers to other things. You know, it transfers to the corporate world. There's a lot of, I mean, I know some consultants, some management consultants that, you know, who have poured into me about leadership and different things. And he goes around talking to Fortune 500 companies about teamwork. What is synergy? What is teamwork? What does that look like in the workplace? Because many of these people never really been on a team, and they don't understand, you know, how to work for the guy on your left and the guy on your right, and you know, going outside your lane and helping, you know, helping others, and just all of that stuff transfers, man, not just to sport. And so I would hire, if all things equal, if I got a guy who went to a Division I school and played a Division I sport, successful or not, he went through the grind of all of that thing, and the lessons he's taken, he's a step ahead of the next guy, you know, all things equal, because he's got these things, man. He's got these skills that, you know, they're in there, you know, they're ingrained in him, you know, sacrifice, you know, self-discipline, how to work, you know, just different things. So I love it, and it's all transferable to me.
I agree. Turge, notes and notes and notes.
I love it.
I just love it. Man. Hey, thank you so much for this today. Dave Turgeon, the head coach for the IMG national team in Florida. Really, really appreciate it. Every time you're on the show, just great conversations, Turge, and this is no exception here. Just absolutely beautiful stuff. Much appreciated. And congratulations again, 25-0. Incredible.
It's a tribute to that whole room and the staff and everyone, including the, you know, we've got 35 total coaches at IMG that coach a lot of different teams, and they are all pulling on the rope together too, man. And I have nothing but love and respect for my teammates that you know, helped us as well. So it was awesome.
Yeah, great stuff. Turge, thanks so much for this.
Thanks, Crush.